side. All right, my clock just ticked over. Should we get started?
Yeah, might as well.
So this is Kitten at IETF 95. I guess the last time we met was IETF 92. Both of us chairs have been sort of low on time for most of that intervening period, so we're going to try and get some more energy and get things back going. The note well, if you have not noted well, please do so.
All right, so the blue sheet should be going around. Thank you again to our minute taker and our Jabber scribe for volunteering, such as it is. This is today's agenda. We'll be starting off by going over the existing working group items we have or had, and then briefly touching on some potential new work that we could be taking on. And once we've gone over that, we'll be talking about priorities. And then if whatever time is left, anything that doesn't cover this would be open mic.
Anybody have any other topics they want to bring up? Any agenda bashing?
All right. So let's start off with our existing items. First of all, some things that have completed since the last time we've met. CAMEC finally made it all the way through the RFC editor queue, back out and back in and out as an RFC 7751. Also, the update to the replacement for 44 bis was also published as 7802. For active items, so the CTS HMAC SHA-2, that's right now pending Shepherd review and write-up. I believe that was on your plate.
Yeah, I am going to take that on, and thank you, Michael, for keep reminding us about that.
Yes. The GSS API extensions for IANA, that's we think is ready for last call.
Yeah, there's been sort of a lot of slow progress on that one, and we were supposed to, I think we had people that wrote up sample entries that would go in the registry, and there was sort of general agreement that that was a reasonable format. The intent is not to pre-populate the entire registry in the document, so we're just going to make a short document that creates the registry, and then we'll populate it later to avoid the burden on the working group, since getting working group energy can be difficult at times. And then there's this SASL SAML EC, which for a long time was sort of just waiting on the authors to have time to do the update, because it's not their primary thing. But we do have a document update in, and so we think it should be ready to go into the last call queue. Then there's IA-Curb, which had needed an editor for a long time, and I picked it up. But we may also, before putting this in last call, we may want to reconsider if we actually want it to be a working group document. It does have at least one implementation, but in the intervening time since when it was first proposed, it's become less clear that it's actually a good idea. So we may finish it off. We might just drop the document. We could potentially even publish it as historic, but we still need to figure out what to do there. 6112 biz needed some revisions. The revisions have been made, but we weren't able to actually publish the new document. Sean Emery has been working on that, and there's some technical details because that has an older sort of IPR declaration boilerplate that we need to preserve. PKInit algorithm agility, we actually have two PKInit documents that are underway. For this one, we actually had a new version come out yesterday and resolved the remaining questions. So we think that that is now also ready for working group last call. I guess you can sort of see we're amassing this large list of things that we think are ready for working group last call. So we're going to start trickling those out soon and hopefully reduce the length of that list.
Right. Now on to some items that still seem to be pending revision. So the second one in our PK is PK freshness. We believe that a new revision is still pending for this.
Oh no, I
confused
the two of them. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is the one that came out this morning or yesterday. The other one was okay for a long time.
All right. Then we've got the auth indicator that I can't remember exactly.
This one got a number assigned. So as you saw, we have these IANA registries document because a lot of our assigned numbers are not controlled by IANA yet. And so the current registrar for Kerberos number assignments has made an assignment, and the document needs to be updated to reflect that.
Right. Then we have the update to 5653. I thought we saw something across the list very recently.
Yeah, that one also got a new version out just yesterday or today. So the waiting on authors is no longer accurate.
Nope. Neither is need for
this one is actually quite large. This is the Java bindings for GSS API.
Right.
And we had needed to do the biz because there was no way for the security context negotiation functions to both return an error and an error token. So there's this sort of GSS negotiation loop where you are communicating with the peer and you exchange these context tokens, but you also need to report success or failure or continue needed to your local side. And because of the way the Java bindings were written, you had to pick whether you got the error or you got the token to send to the peer. And so because of that, you could not indicate to the peer why you failed with the old version. So that was the main update in 5653 biz, but because the whole document was open, we noticed there were some other structural problems, and that sort of delayed processing of the document for a long time while we figured out what to do. But we believe we've got everything settled out, and we can run it through last call now.
And then we have another IANA registries document, this time for Kerberos, that it needs another pass for, I believe it was some of the various integer assignments.
Yes, that sounds right. So the current Kerberos number registrar had sort of requested help double checking all the lists were correct and going through the various documents. And so we need to make sure we got feedback from all of those people and get that collated into the actual registry document.
Okay. So that's everything that's currently slated inside the working group. Now we've got a number of things that have come up over the intervening time. First, we've got a number of documents from Nico. So we've got PK Cross, for cross-realm, getting cross-realm tokens.
Yeah, to use PKNet for cross-realm stuff. Then there's the KERB5 extra round trip. So currently the Kerberos protocol exchange has a fixed number of packets and round trips, but it turns out it would be useful to add additional round trips to sort of communicate certain errors, to bootstrap some potential other key derivation steps. You would need an extra round trip. I think if you were going to shoehorn Diffie-Hellman in, it should be useful for forward secrecy, say. Then there's some generic naming attributes for the GSS API, which is to sort of expose things that you can express in Kerberos authentication data to the GSS layer to just present a more useful GSS interface in general. And then the impersonation naming attributes is sort of a similar sort of thing going on.
Right.
So is anybody jumping up and down with excitement at the prospects of any of these? Seem pretty calm.
Anything on that?
Nothing in Jabber so far.
Well, then we also have a number of things from Rick Van Brain. Hopefully I didn't pronounce his name too badly. So we have the RFB SASL. This is essentially providing SASL layer to remote frame buffers. There's the DNS text KRB, a way to indicate your Kerberos realm using DNS text records.
Yeah, I think that one is progressing through the independent stream submission because we sort of talked about the document previously and sort of suggested that there might not be enough energy here and it would go faster in that.
We also have the Kerberos Kerberized Diffie-Hellman, so some way of trying to provide form of perfect forward secrecy with within Kerberos.
And then there was a pseudonymity draft for some of these cases where you are doing, I believe it was for the cross-realm stuff, to provide some level of protection for client names so you don't have to expose who you are when it's not strictly necessary.
So anybody super excited about anything from Rick? Aside from Rick? I'm sure he's super excited.
Rick is in the Jabber room.
All right. So there's also a number of potential items that come up from people that are neither Nico nor Rick.
Right. So the first one is a PAKE-based pre-authentication scheme. And so the idea here is that currently in Kerberos, when you're doing password-based keys, you're literally taking the hashed password and using that as a key, and that's directly being used to encrypt the network traffic. And so if your user's passwords are not very good, then that gives an attacker who can observe the network some ciphertext that they can attack offline. We had Kenny Peterson, who's a CFRG co-chair here at IETF92, and he was pointing out that this is in fact a really bad thing and you should stop doing that. And so this PAKE pre-auth scheme would be a good way to stop requiring the password-derived keys to be used for encrypting stuff that an attacker can see. The second document there is one that I wrote to deprecate triple DES and RC4. There's sort of a general trend of moving away from RC4 among all internet protocols. Triple DES is perhaps less urgent, but has a small block size. It's very slow. And the other bonus factor here in Kitten is that if we get rid of both of those, then the sort of data structures used by the GSS API become much simpler because only the newer generation of ENC types would be used. And so the code bases for implementations could just get rid of a large chunk of code. So this is sort of improving the state of the protocol, keeping it modernized, that sort of thing. Another sort of recent trend, I don't know if I want to call it a fad, but a trend in cryptographic usage is towards AEAD ciphers instead of like a traditional CVC mode with separate MAC. So we have a proposal for how you can do that for Kerberos as used in the GSS API. Unfortunately, you can't do this for Kerberos directly because in Kerberos you have long-term keys that can be used potentially by multiple parties without synchronization between them. And so most of the AEAD modes have a nonce or a counter requirement, and you just can't meet the necessity of not reusing the counters across all the different usages. And so it's not really safe to use AEAD for long-term Kerberos keys. But with the GSS API, you know that you have a single short use context between exactly two peers. And in that case, you can control the sequence number. And so that AEAD becomes safe and you can get the performance gains from that. And this last one is for essentially using the DNS for service discovery for Kerberos. Shoving things in the DNS can be useful, and there's some potential things you could do there. So that's it for this slide, right?
Yes. Any questions, comments? You're all just waiting to get to a meeting venue? Okay. So with this, there is, like we showed, there's a bunch of work that's already slated for the working group. There's a bunch of items that we could be taking on. But as I think has been evidenced fairly clearly, both from the chair's activity and the list, there's not a lot of energy in here. So yeah. we need to think about what it is we really want to get done and how we can best prioritize things to get there.
Yeah, I mean, we had 2 pages of slides of working group documents that are probably ready for working group last call. And that's kind of a lot. If we think we can only do one last call at a time and we do a 2-week last call, that might be enough time to get enough feedback to be confident and move it on. But if we make a working group last call and they're silent on the list, it sort of puts us in an awkward position where we're not really comfortable moving the document forward because we don't know that enough people have reviewed it. And so we have the potential for stalling there. So on the one hand, we have all these documents that are already working group documents and we should be moving forward and we should work on that. But we also have these new topics that are potential candidates for adoption that perhaps have more energy, more excitement about them. And it sort of seems like an appropriate balance would be to try and get a few of these existing documents published that we know there's been some amount of interest in, and we think we can finish up and actually get the energy to finish them up. But then after we have driven a few of these documents through, it might be reasonable to start pulling in new documents again. But I think we do need to publish a few more of our existing things and clean up our plate a little bit before we can really do a good job of pulling in new stuff. So I guess that would lead us to the question of prioritizing the existing items and then perhaps prioritizing the potential new items. Right, so I guess on Jabber, Greg is saying that he's most interested in the spake pre-auth of all of the, I guess, the potential new items. And then the die also seems worth doing and not too hard. Okay. We have a question in Jabber, how many people are typically needed to review? I think if we get 2 or 3 people that have really gone through the document and really understand what's going on, at this point that's probably enough for us. We don't really have enough people to try and insist on more. I mean, you can see the room itself, there's only 15, 20 people here. So does anybody want to offer an opinion on prioritizing any of the existing working group items? Can we go back to, I guess it's 2 slides, so we have to swap between them. There's 3 slides, sorry.
Yes. So CTS HMAC SHA-2, that's simply one of us needs to finish.
Yeah, so that's definitely happening.
Yes. So otherwise we've got, I wish I could mute that more. The SAPI extensions, IANA, and SAML EC. There has been some activity SAML EC on the list recently. That seems almost like a logical next step. At least it's fresh in people's minds.
We have a suggestion in the Jabber room that the people who are trying to propose the new topics should help out with reviewing the existing stuff, which seems reasonable to me.
All right. So in our secondary list, we do have, so the IE curve, like you said, maybe we need to consider whether this really ought to be historical or not.
Yeah. So I think IE curve, we can probably move towards the bottom of the priority list. Since 6112 biz was started because someone was trying to make a second implementation of 6112 and discovered they couldn't interoperate, and this was to fix a, it was just the case of a string constant, I think. So that one should be pretty simple, and we should move forward with pretty quickly.
Okay.
And I know that Microsoft has been interested in some of the work on PKInit. I have the impression, I'm not sure about this, that the freshness token is more timely to them than the algorithm agility. But I think it was also said that we have multiple implementations of algorithm agility. So that would be an argument in favor of actually finishing those and not deferring them indefinitely. And I guess, should we go to the 3 of 3 slide?
Okay.
So again, the 5653 biz is a biz document because of a specific need that came up, and it would be friendly to the Java developers to be able to put that in. You know, Microsoft wants the freshness token number assignment so they can ship it.
So there's there's quite a bit going on from Greg here, which you're saying. So it seems to be a conversation that he wants to have with you. But he says that he's happy to deprioritize IA curve, and Microsoft is hoping for a PA data number assignment for PKInit freshness ASAP, so they can ship an implementation. He thinks.
Yeah, so I guess we could look at potentially early assignment for that. I assume it's in IANA. I'll check.
Scott earlier said he can he can at least prod people who are working on SAMLC to come to the list, but he doesn't know if that helps the review.
Excellent.
More people for review is certainly helpful. So if he's got people that would be willing to try to help out with that, that would definitely be worthwhile.
Yes.
And Rick says PA data is not IANA.
Okay, so that does make it easier to do the number assignment faster, since that's just the Kuros number registrar. So I guess if we have the sense of the working group that that spec is basically final and not going to change, we should be able to do a number assignment.
Well, so given that, would getting PKInit freshness working group last call first be worthwhile? Get that out of the way?
Potentially. Since Microsoft is interested, I assume we could get a review from them, although if they're the authors, a review is not necessarily adding much.
Right.
Oh, sorry. Greg is making the claim that the PA data might in fact be IANA. So we'll hold off on that. The Kuros authentication indicator is already shipping in MIT Kuros. So that would potentially be incentive to put that earlier.
Greg says RC 6113 put PA data into IANA.
Okay, then.
So I guess looking through these, it seems rather unfortunate, but the IANA registries documents are perhaps less of a priority, unless Stephen has something to say about that.
illustrious AD. Nope.
Hi, Stephen Farrell. So no, I'm happy to just process things as you can get people to review them and finish them.
Okay. So, yeah, there's several things that seem like we should do soon. And maybe begin at freshness as early.
Well, there's I mean, it sounds that I mean, so the thinkings of the chairs here is that we don't seem to have the energy to do more than one, maybe two last calls simultaneously. So ordering these up, we need some help figuring out what order we should be doing these.
Rick Van Ryn says, in general, if one needs numbers, but the working group isn't capable to move, is there something an author can do?
So Stephen Farrell again. Yeah, I mean, I think this is an ongoing problem with this topic generally, because there's work comes in spurts and it has a couple of people interested. So just as a note, I mean, working group last call is not a formal part of the IETF process.
Right.
So if you guys can think of a way that makes you happy to kind of, that there is consensus for a piece of work, then it doesn't have to be a 2-week working group last call type thing. Like, for example, if you maintained a wiki or something, or a web page or some kind of list of documents, and after it's got like 2 or 3 reviews and somebody's implemented it, then maybe you'll decide that if there's nobody objecting to it progressing, then maybe that's kind of good enough for you.
Yeah.
Will that be good enough for the IESG?
So working group last call is not a formal part of the IETF process.
Right.
So if you as chairs say that we're doing a publication request, then the rest is normal. It goes to an IETF last call, or I review it, and off we go.
Okay. I mean, I just asked, one of the first things that we've got to address as shepherds is consensus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if this is a good enough call for rough consensus, we could certainly look at doing that.
I mean, I think you can make a good case to say that there's a lot of this stuff where it's a small number of implementers are the ones who really count. And if you're happy that somebody's managed to implement something and are the right people and nobody's objecting, I think probably we get a bit stuck up by prioritizing things by list and order. So maybe if prioritizing them by, when they've got enough reviews and an implementation, then they get to the top of the queue immediately.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. The only reason we were thinking working group last call is because that's easy to put a deadline around.
Yeah.
And at least speaking for myself, I know for a number of people, deadlines drive my work.
Yeah, but I mean.
So, but sure.
But what you might want to do is, if you had sort of if something has gotten the 3 reviews or links on a wiki page or something, and then your working group last call might be kind of turned around and say, we're pushing this ahead unless you object.
Sure.
We think we have enough review, and
Yeah.
this is your last chance to object.
Right.
Okay.
Perfectly fine interpretation of last call.
Right. When you've got when it's got to 2 or 3 reviews that you're happy with. Because I mean, that might just kind of get us out of the kind of header line blocking in the queue.
Sure.
Yeah, so we got these 2 Viz documents and PK init freshness and the SASL SAML EC that I think the authors are pretty happy with, and we can try and move forward quickly. And I guess we should try out this new scheme.
Certainly. So with that regard, if there are, the chairs can go looking for reviews on these documents to see if they're for the current versions. But if anybody is aware of more recent ones, just make sure, just send a note either just to the chairs or remind the list. Here's my review, and we'll take note of it. Ben and I will confer and see where best to put this. It'll likely be somewhere on the IETF wikis somewhere. We'll get that onto the list as soon as we find a place to put it.
Yep. Now, do we think we should also do a similar scheme for bringing in new work? We could have a wiki page where we list things that people are proposing, and then I don't want to say voting, but people could say that they think it's a good idea, they oppose it, they don't really care. So I guess with the potential new work, is there anyone, so I guess if you had to pick one thing you most wanted to see, what would that be? Does anyone want to come up to the mic or in the Jabber room? I guess we already heard from Greg.
Also, if you think we need to clear out the queue of existing work first, that's also a perfectly valid statement to make.
Rick says PK cross, though I might continue with my TGS approach.
Anybody else?
I guess we should probably try out the wiki experiment.
All right. So we'll definitely do the wiki experiment for the existing documents. We'll talk some more about how we can run that for new work. If there are better suggestions for handling that, please bring those to the list, and we'll see about making a comment there too.
Nico says he would like PK cross too, but he first wants multi-round GSS and MAC.
I will ask Nico and Jabber for some more clarification. But I guess that brings us to open mic.
Don't everybody come rushing to the mic at once. All right, well, I'll take this unless there's anything from Jabber or Ghost shows up. I take it that we're done.
Did everybody sign the blue sheets?
I think I know I saw a few stragglers, and you may need to do that.
My comments in the Jabber room have convinced people that they want Spake pre-auth more than the other preferences.
All right, thank you, everybody.
So, I don't know if you're kind of GitHub or exactly, but there could be some